Good morning and welcome to the Vessel Online. I am Dawson DeVito here with Charlotte Heckman from the Compass Center, here to give us a brief overview of what they do and how we as students can help. Charlotte, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely.
Now, I think a good starter question is probably just what the Compass Center does, what kind of services they offer, and maybe a little bit about yourself, what position you specifically hold in the company.
Yeah, so the Compass Center is a therapy center here in Sioux Falls. We provide services to survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. We are the only rape crisis center in the state of South Dakota. We also provide advocacy services to survivors, and so our advocates are the individuals going and meeting people in the hospital after a sexual assault has occurred. We also will go into prisons for the Prison Rape Elimination Act and provide services again to survivors. And then I am part of the Little Navigators program here in Sioux Falls, and so my program is a little bit unique compared to the services offered at the Compass Center in that we're providing preventative services. So we're really focusing on 3 to 5-year-old kiddos in child care facilities here in Sioux Falls. We provide therapy services, we provide support for teachers, trainings, to help them become more trauma-informed, help their classroom be more trauma-informed. And then we also do social skills groups for the kids in our program. We currently have a therapeutic classroom running as well at the Boys and Girls Club. So yeah, that's the Little Navigators program, and the Compass Center as a whole, again, serves those survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault.
Wow. We kind of went into this a little bit before the interview, and you kind of mentioned it already with the age range, but what's the numbers of demographics in terms of who often comes to the Compass Center for help? Because I know there's this really, really horrible negative stigma that men should keep that stuff like hidden in, shouldn't really talk about that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
what does the demographic split kind of look like?
Yeah, so we serve all individuals. We have individuals from 3 years old all the way up to 100. We have men and women. We see young girls, we see young boys, we see everyone. We, again, are providing those services, especially in my program, to prevent individuals from coming to the Compass Center later on. So my program works specifically with all children, but at the Compass Center, I would say we often see more females coming in for therapy and advocacy services, but we also definitely know that rape and domestic violence is underreported for men in our area.
Now, you and the Compass Center offer such an important service, not just to Sioux Falls, but I think a service that needs to be everywhere throughout the U.S. We had heard a little bit about financial struggles, so can you go into a little bit about that and how maybe students or any listeners at home could help out?
Yeah, so recently we became aware of a more intense financial crisis than we had originally thought. A couple years ago, the Victims of Crime Act, which is a national act, was changed, and so the funds that were being collected and then distributed to services or to victim service agencies were depleted, and so with that, the funds that were going out to the victim service agencies continued to get smaller and smaller. And now, at this point, that act has been changed, and so the funds are starting to rebuild, but it's going to take a long time to get it back to where it was. So at this point, we're seeing a lot of victim service agencies making really hard financial decisions. Some are starting to close their doors, and the victim service agencies are providing these services to victims. They are individuals who are coming in asking for help. They have been victimized, which means that they did not do anything to ask for this situation or to ask for what has happened to them, but they are in the aftermath of surviving, again, what occurred. And so victim service agencies across the nation are struggling with the lower funding sources. Specifically here in South Dakota, we have recently had a one-time distribution of money, which is a positive, but unfortunately this is not a one-time challenge. This is an ongoing challenge for victim service agencies in the United States and in South Dakota.
Wow. Were you given any information on why the act was made and why it was just changed so suddenly? It just seemed to come out of nowhere.
So I am not privy to all of the information that went into VOCA. I do know that it had to do with some wording in the original act that ended up moving some of those funds to other areas, which I understand there's a lot of areas that do need funding at the time, but specifically for Victims of Crime Act, again, these are individuals who didn't ask for what happened to them. They are survivors and they deserve to have services to help them get back to where they were before, to even better than they were before.
Absolutely. Now, you kind of already went into this, but I think it's important to get this question specifically out. I've already mentioned that I believe these services are incredibly important, not just for students, not just for the general populace in Sioux Falls, but all of America. I believe everybody should have this service. Why specifically do you think that Compass Center services are so important?
Yeah, so the Compass Center, we are serving the whole state of South Dakota. The state of South Dakota is the third in the nation per capita for sexual assaults. So we are in a state where there's a lot of trauma occurring. And we know trauma is not a one-time event that occurs to one person and then it's encapsulated in that moment. It's something that touches that person's life and touches all of those around them. And so we're seeing so many ripple effects of the traumas that are occurring that we have to take a stand. We have to do something to make a difference.
Absolutely, I 100% agree. Well, thank you, Charlotte, so much for coming on. And thank you all for listening. This has been Dawson DeVito with Charlotte Heckman from Compass Center, and we will see you next time.